Welcome back to my channel, you guys. This is your internet wrestling champion here, back again for another review. And today we're here to talk about the 2026 Royal Rumble as we're officially on our road to WrestleMania. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So we start things off this pay-per-view with the Women's Royal Rumble match. And I gotta tell you, since the very first one that they had in 2018, this might just be one of my favorite, not just my favorite Women's Royal Rumble match, but one of my favorite Royal Rumbles in, like, at least in the 2020s thus far. This was entertaining to me from bell to bell. I know a lot of people feel like it started a little slow, but I think that's in part to Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair starting things off, and the storytelling just not being... It was the right thing at the wrong time, you know? It shouldn't have been the story beat to start the match off with, because what you had was them just pretending off, like feigning some offense, only to break the hold and to reassure the crowd that they're still best friends, you know? You had Charlotte Flair pretend to body check Alexa Bliss and drag her to the corner and put her on the top rope, only to break the hold and do the heart thing with Alexa Bliss that they do. And then Alexa Bliss later down, like a few seconds in, pretends to get Charlotte and the Sister Abigail, only to break the hold and again do the whole thing, that whole shtick that they had. We had a lot of amazing performances here on the women's side for the Royal Rumble last night, because honestly Chelsea Green was just entertaining from the moment she stepped in to the moment she got thrown out. I don't even remember who threw her out, to be honest. I just remember her having a blast watching her on the screen. At one point she tried to slyly join the Judgment Day and tried to get them to salute, and then they tried to throw her out, and then you had Alba Fire try to make herself like a leg rest or something just to break her fall. It didn't work. She did get eliminated fairly quickly. I mean, she's clearly not positioned to be a world champion just yet, but honestly, I don't even care. I just want to see more Chelsea Green. She's been one of the more entertaining talents on both sides of the roster since the day she debuted. Surprisingly, you didn't have a lot of guest appearances or surprising returns. I think the one surprise return that we did have was in, I think it was number 30 entrant. It was Brie Bella. So we finally had some twin magic after 7 long years. We have Brie Bella off the shelf again and back on the main roster. So that's really good to see. I'm really happy to see that she's healthy and that she's able to do what she loves again. I just hope that she's totally clear and that she works with safe people for the time being and builds herself back up. It was great to see her again. Nobody was unhappy to see her, you know. Everyone was pleasantly surprised. And another surprise return, which actually caught me off guard. I'm surprised it was the moment of the night that I popped the loudest for. It was when Tiffany Stratton returned. I think she was 28 or 29 right before Brie Bella. And I gotta be honest, I did not realize how big of a fan I was of hers until yesterday when she came and I actually popped out loud and I was happy to see her. And she came in and was just wrecking house, you know. What time is it? Did a sunset flip off the top rope and hit right into like 5-6 entrants, you know, or you know, competitors in the ring. And she was doing great. She was looking great. And she made it to the final 3 alongside Sol Ruca and Liv Morgan. But we'll get more on that later. Another surprise, not really a betrayal, but you already know you're walking on a knife's edge with these two anyways. It was the Kabuki Warriors. There was a point in the match when Asuka was thrown over the top rope by Io Sky, and she's just hanging there by, like, for dear life, you know? And then Kairi Sane comes in and tries to go for the save, and she gets knocked down. And then while she gets back up and tries to charge for Io Sky, Io moves out the way and she accidentally knocks Asuka out of the rope, like off the ring, you know, off the apron, and eliminates Asuka. And while she's so distraught, she gets eliminated herself. And Michael Cole, this instigating ass, he's just like, Kairi! You already know what's gonna happen this Monday. She's probably gonna get smacked the shit out of. I gotta be honest, that whole storyline makes me very uncomfortable because they almost do it too well, you know? Like, it really does look like an abusive and toxic relationship. So, only time can, well, in the next 24 hours, we're probably gonna know what Kairi Sate's fate is. But definitely not a good look for her. She knocked out her senpai, and now her senpai is disappointed again. So we'll see how that unfolds tomorrow night. So we get to our last three competitors, and it's Sol Ruca, Liv Morgan, and Tiffany Stratton. And I gotta be honest, I couldn't tell who I wanted to win more. I'm personally the most fan of Tiffany Stratton, but Sol Ruca has just this flair about her, and that her personality is so bubbly. So she's just a very likable talent because her personality is very like laid back and chill. She just goes with the flow and doesn't care. She's down to fight, whatever, right? But her move set is really just. She's like the Javon Evans of the women's division, you know? It's not quite the same. Javon bounces from pillar to post. More on him later on in the night. But Sol Ruca, her acrobatics and her agility is just unlike anything I think any of us have ever seen in the ring on either side of the division, you know? Like, I don't know who can produce whatever the Soul Snatcher is in the middle of a match like she can, you know? It's quite possibly the coolest finisher I've seen in the last like 15 years, you know? It's something special, and it's actually ironically what got her eliminated in the last stretch of the match anyways, as well, because there's a point at which all three of them are on the apron hanging onto the ropes, and they're just punching each other. You know, Liv Morgan punches one person, goes to the other side and punches the other person, turns around and punches Tiffany, and they're just going at it back and forth, you know? And at one point, Tiffany Stratton is by the turnbuckle, and Sol Ruca comes, and she jumps off the turnbuckle and tries to do a Soul Snatcher, but Tiffany moves out the way and kicks Sol Ruca and eliminates Sol Ruca. So she was a little overzealous and a little too acrobatic, and that mistake costed her the match, and she was the third place finisher, getting eliminated then and there. And immediately after, you see Liv Morgan run and hit the Oblivion on Tiffany Stratton and knock her off the apron. And there you have your winner of the 2026 Women's Royal Rumble, Liv Morgan. Congratulations, Liv. I'm really excited to see how this unfolds because we have the Women's Championship match tomorrow night on Monday Night Raw. And my best guess is that it's going to be Raquel winning it, and it's going to be Liv Morgan versus Raquel at WrestleMania. I hope that's what they do because Raquel has been on such a tear the last few months. I'd say the last year. And this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Stephanie Vaquer is a little overrated. I don't know what she says half the times. It's not because I don't understand her, it's because it doesn't have any substance to it, you know? She hasn't been able to really produce anything evocative out of any of her storylines, you know? She doesn't say anything of any substance or of any weight that I can really gravitate to. All she does is come and give a good performance in the ring. And there's got to be more to that than a champion, right? You got to be more than a good wrestler to be the world champion, ironically enough. And I just don't think Stephanie Vaquer is there yet, you know? All in all, I think I'd give that match about a 7.5 to 8 out of 10. Definitely a lot higher than I'd give a lot of the women's matches of the past. I think they've just been... Honestly, I think it was better than the men's match. You know, I'm just going to say it right off the rip. I think it was better than the men's Rumble from bell to bell. It had more exciting spots, in my opinion. It had a lot more overlapping storylines. And each individual storylines was just more interesting to me throughout the last 12 months than they were on the male side. So overall, I think it was a good Royal Rumble match. I'm happy with the finish. I'm a little wonky about the beginning, you know. I think they shouldn't have started it with Charlotte and Alexa Flair because the first 2 minutes of the match was just a whole bunch of nothing, right? They should have at least had like 1-2 wrestlers or entrants come in before Alexa came in, because that way at least we would have built some momentum for the first 5 minutes of the match. But other than that it wasn't a minor thing because that sets the pace and tone for the next like 10-15 minutes. But other than that, I think they pivoted off that slow start pretty well, and I think they capped it off really well up towards the end. and it was a very climactic finish. I was on the edge of my seat, and I was happy to see Brie Bella and Tiffany Stratton back, and I'm curious to see how it unfolds in the women's division for the WWE title. Next up was Gunther versus AJ Styles, with Styles' career on the line. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this was hard to watch. It was an ugly beatdown. And it was maybe competitive between the two for the first 7 to 10 minutes until there was a point where Gunther takes AJ and just chucks him over the top rope. And AJ lands on his solar plexus on the apron, hits right here, and then turns and then hits it again right on the hardwood or like on the hard floor outside of the ring. From that point on, the complexion had completely shifted, and it was all Gunther for the next 15 minutes. Gunther was giving them the beatdown, bro. They were like, by the end of the match, you saw welts and blood coming off of AJ Styles on his chest. He was bleeding on his forearm. Gunther had a whole lot of blood on him, but none of it was his. It was all AJ Styles bleeding from pillar to post the entire match. And it was a great showing by both people. This was the best story told in ring for the night, in my opinion. There was a point where there was a few signs of offenses from AJ Styles, and they really like drove it home, the fact that the official, the referee, was a good personal friend of AJ Styles, because throughout the entire match you just see the referee yelling, "Yo, AJ, you gotta get in this, man, are you gonna give up?" And like, I didn't even know that they were friends. For me, I was just like, yo, man, this referee is really killing it, man. Like, he's really adding weight to every hit by Gunther. Gunther would throw him to the corner and just beat him down with absolutely no response from AJ's end several times throughout the match. And there were at any one of those points, the referee could have called the match, but out of respect for AJ, he let him continue and let him decide if he wanted to continue. And obviously AJ isn't gonna give up like that. But there was a point where AJ gets this last wind in, right? This last hurrah where he's just hitting him with the elbows, and then Gunther again throws him over the top rope, but this time AJ lands, hits him with the elbow, and tries to go for the phenomenal forearm. But you can tell just how studied of a wrestler Gunther is here, or how they try to portray him in the WWE, because it almost felt like he had set him up for that, knowing he would go for the phenomenal forearm. Because as soon as he jumped, Gunther catches him and gets him in like over his shoulder like this. Right? So his legs are over his shoulder and he has AJ Styles up like this, and he throws him up and he catches him and gets him in the sleeper. And he's got him in the sleeper for an excruciating, agonizing like 5 to 7 minutes. I shit you not. It was the amount of time that he had him in the sleeper hold was longer than most matches run time on a typical episode of Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown. This guy had him on it for a while. And AJ Styles' lips were turning blue, his face was turning purple. He would try to break free a few times, only to get clipped with the elbow and get put back into the rear naked or the sleeper hold. And Gunther really was showing his technical prowess in this match, because as he had him, he was putting weight, like he was standing on it, like his legs, and shifting his weight forward, really putting the pressure on AJ's neck to show, just positioning himself in a way that made him look dominant throughout that entire hold. And eventually you had AJ Styles passing out, and as Michael Cole said, his career fades to black along with him, and your winner of the match was the career killer, officially, and reinforcing that title by now taking AJ Styles' career, and Gunther was victorious in that match. And after that match, honestly, there was like a 5-minute period where he, 10 minutes, where he had the ring to himself, and you see him trying to take off his gloves and put it in the middle of the ring, only for him to defiantly put it back on and do the AJ Styles pose, So I feel like I don't think it was him defiantly saying, no, I'm not retiring. I think he was saying, I'm not going to retire defeatedly, you know? I'm going to keep my head up high. And I think it was him like kind of winking and hinting to the idea that he might be moving over to AEW or TNA. If he does that, I'm totally happy with it, because this was a poetic way for him to leave. 10 years after he started to the day, and on the very same show, Royal Rumble, for him to leave like that with the legacy that he's made in such a short time, I think this was the best way for him, right? Especially considering if he does go to TNA or AEW, I think this was the best move overall, provided that that's how they follow up on it. So only time can tell. We'll see what the following months have in store for AJ Styles. So next up, we had the undisputed WWE title match between Drew McIntyre and, I guess, hometown hero Sami Zayn. Second hometown hero Sami Zayn. And there isn't really much to say. It was a pretty good showing. A very dominant showing by our champion. Still champion Drew McIntyre. We had, similar to the AJ Styles match, and like a similar story beat, you know. It was fairly competitive for the first like 10% of the match, until Sami Zayn goes for an over-the-top rope dive, right? He dives over the top rope out of the ring and hits Drew McIntyre dead on target. But as he does it, you can see he flips and kind of lands on his feet and falls back on his back. And I guess he tweaked his lower back around then, because from there, the match just wasn't the same. Sami was barely moving, like compared to like the first 5 minutes before leading up to it, you know? He was not the same man as he was going into the match. And he wasn't as confident in his moves, because subconsciously he was holding back. And he did a good job in telling that story. It was now a compromised Sami Zayn versus a bloodlust shark that is Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre was not holding anything back, you know, and he smelled the blood and he went right for it. This guy throws Sami Zayn over the top rope out of the ring, gets him, power bombs him through the announce table, and he pulls him back into the ring and hits him with 2 claymores to put him away. But he doesn't just pin him after the first claymore. As soon as he hits him with the claymore, he gets into the corner and he's just doing his thing. You know, he's like, oh, yo, get up. And he tells him, he's just like, yo, look me in my eyes, Sami. Do it for your son. Look me in the eye. And he goes and hits him with the claymore and puts him away. And it was just the most villainous, dastardly display by Drew McIntyre. And me, I love the dastardly villain. I was loving every second of it, because Riyadh hated this man. You know, their hometown hero, their beloved Sami Zayn, got absolutely annihilated. I loved every second of it. I don't know if you did, but I'm probably going to piss off a lot of fans. I thoroughly enjoyed that beatdown. So I'm happy for that. So still, your WWE champion, Drew McIntyre. You've got to assume that this is leading up to a big payoff for Sami Zayn. They're probably going to give him a big win next year at WrestleMania. I hope that sooner than that, because I think his momentum is going to fizzle out if they wait another year. I think maybe for SummerSlam, let him fight Drew McIntyre again and win the title off him that way. I think Drew McIntyre is the perfect villain for Sami Zayn to win the title off of. So I hope that's what they're leading this up to. But all in all, I think this, again, just like the AJ Styles thing, this is provided that the next few months are followed through correctly. This match was very entertaining, and I think it did exactly the job that I think it was set out to do, which is set up a longer storyline down the road and a payoff down the road for Sami Zayn. So all in all, I'd give this match maybe a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. I think like 6 out of 10 if you're a Sami fan for sure. You know, you're not going to like what happened. But if you're a Drew McIntyre fan like I am, you know, 7 out of 10 for sure. This guy beat the crap out of that guy, and I loved every second of it. All right, and for our main event, we had the men's Royal Rumble match. And to kick things off, our number 1 entrant was none other than the ruler, the conqueror, Obafemi. and you see him with his march down the ring. And number 2, we had Bron Breakker, but not really much of a number 2, because as he was making his way down to the ring, we had the mysterious masked hooded figure re-debuting and beating the crap out of Bron Breakker before he even got into the ring. You see the reaction too, because the camera was panned directly towards Bron Breakker's face, and you see him just going to the ring, and he notices something, and before he could even react, he just gets booted to the face and curb stomped and thrown into the ring. And as soon as Bron Breakker gets onto his feet, the poor guy didn't even get a chance to throw his shirt off, you know? The guy got booted by Obafemi right over the top rope. And that could have been one of the fastest eliminations in Royal Rumble history. I think top 5 fastest eliminations. That lasted no more than 10 seconds for poor Bron Breakker. He didn't even know what happened, you know? The guy just got up. He was like, what? Dazed and confused. Obviously pissed off, but nothing you can do about it. So, who was the masked figure? Not sure. Was it Austin Theory? I don't know, because he was still, he was clearly in the back with the rest of the Vision, so I don't think it was Austin Theory. I'm sure he had an alibi. Was it Seth Rollins? It fit. I think so. You know, he was about as tall as Seth Rollins was. At least before, you can tell it wasn't Seth Rollins. The stature didn't match. But here, this guy was about the same height, about as lean. I think it was Seth Rollins. I think this is leading up to a WrestleMania match between Rollins and Breakker. I hope that's what it is. I don't know where they're gonna go with this, or if they're gonna reveal it right away. You know how these guys how the WWE likes to prolong the reveal as much as possible. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. But the Vision already lost their plan went out the window before the match even started. But for number 3, we had Solo Sikoa come in. And you know, I never realized how much I wanted to see that match between Obafemi and Solo Sikoa. Because when they got into the ring, they wasted no time. They went right to it, you know. And it was fun. It was fun to watch. It was 2 big guys going at it. Obviously, the David in this situation, weirdly enough, was Solo Sikoa. But eventually, Rey Mysterio comes out, and Oba just didn't care. You know, this guy throws Solo out the ring, takes Rey Mysterio and chucks him over the ring. And this guy, by the end of it, had 5 eliminations under his belt, and yet still managed to produce an aura that was reminiscent of the 2020 Royal Rumble, where where Brock Lesnar was just steamrolling through the competition by himself. Remember, there was a time where he was just in the ring by himself, waiting for the next entrant, and it was Shelton Benjamin, and he throws him out, and then he waited for the next entrant. It was literally a replication of that, except with Obafemi. At some point in the match, though, you did have Brock Lesnar himself come in. And I know a lot of people were making a stink about that. I thought it was pretty entertaining. You know, it was a little lukewarm, the face-off between Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, because there were, at the time, too many participants in the match. But all in all, I think Brock Lesnar's appearance was pretty entertaining. You had him give a suplex to Obafemi, only for Obafemi to get up and clothesline the shit out of Brock Lesnar. And then as he does that, he takes someone and throws him over the top rope. And as he throws him over the top rope, Brock Lesnar quickly recovers and throws Obafemi over the top rope, you know? And it was as if it was pretty anticlimactic for someone like Oba to have gone out. You know what I mean? But I think this is also a move that was setting up a future WrestleMania match between Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. So provided that that's what's going on, I can live with this decision. I just hope that they set up the match in a way that makes sense. I can't see a face Oba trying to get redemption on a heel Brock Lesnar. So we got to see how this is going to unfold over the coming weeks. So there are a few notable entrants that caught me off guard. Cody Rhodes being the first one. I'm surprised how early they had Cody Rhodes enter the match. I think he was number 14, and he came in halfway through, and you know, it was surprising, but not in a bad way. You know, you saw him mix and mingle with a lot of mid-carders and talent that's just like from NXT. You know, you saw him mix it up with Trick Williams. You saw him mix it up with Javon Evans, who was just bouncy. You know, he bounces off one rope and flails to the other rope, and in midair, I guess one of his long ass limbs just hits somebody in the face. It just so happens to. This guy just, he's Ricochet Part 2 and done right. He just ricochets from rope to rope, and in the middle, either his braids or his leg or one of his flailing limbs just happens to smack somebody along the way, you know? And I love that fighting style. I don't think anyone has ever seen anything like it, you know? And that's why I compare him to the likes of Sol Ruka, because both of their styles are so unorthodox, and it's so refreshing to watch and efficiently dangerous. You know, no one's able to predict either one of their movesets. At least I'm not. But yeah, I like the positioning that they gave Cody Rhodes coming in. It gave him ample time to work with a lot of these up-and-coming stars and just give them a chance to showcase their talent with the best, you know? And eventually you had Roman Reigns, Jey Uso come in, sorry. You had Jey Uso come in, and honestly, what the hell is he even doing, you know? They kind of got him as like a foolish gag character to me, like an R-Truth type of role, in my opinion, in this match. This guy comes, does the whole yeet thing, goes into the match, doesn't even do anything. Literally, the first thing he does is run it back and do the yeet again. And like the first two, like, he's wasted so much time that by the time his entrance was done, the next entrant was already started. And who else could it be no better than Roman Reigns himself, the OTC1 as they now call him, makes his way down to the ring. And you see goofy ass Jey Uso going on and be like, yo, what up, cousin? You want to run it back? And Roman Reigns teases him and he kind of like tricks him into running it back. And as he's about to do it, this guy uppercuts the shit out of Jey Uso. And rightfully so, you know, like, what are you doing? You're goofing around in the middle of a Royal Rumble. I kind of wish he just threw him over the top rope then and there, you know? Like, I thought the Hell in a Cell match in 2020 would have taught Jey Uso something. But clearly not. This guy, I don't know what they're doing with him. I just don't care anymore. It's 2026. He's had his time. He's paid his dues. I guess he can do whatever he wants. But I don't know what they were doing with him, man. Anyways, moving on. So the next entrant after Roman Reigns was Jacob Fatu. And as he's making his way down the ramp, you have a face-off between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. But you can tell Cody Rhodes is a little distracted because he had, at the moment, much more bad blood between himself and Jacob Fatu. So he breaks eye contact with Roman Reigns and just goes right to beating up Jacob Fatu and getting into it with him, right? And as he's about to go through the ropes and dive out with Jacob Fatu, he knocks him right in the face, drags him out the ring, and starts beating the crap out of him. So these guys, the next several minutes, Jacob Fatu and Cody Rhodes disappear. They're outside of the ring just beating the crap out of each other. And Roman Reigns and Jey Uso start going at it for a little while until Roman Reigns eventually throws out Jey Uso. And in the middle of this, Jacob Fatu and Cody get back into the ring, right? And Jacob Fatu throws Cody again over the top rope. And Cody is hanging by his legs over the rope. And he's about to do like a sit-up and get back on, recover. And in the middle of recovering, while he's hanging on the rope, Drew McIntyre comes out of nowhere and Claymore kicks Cody Rhodes right off the ropes, out of the ring, and eliminates Cody Rhodes. This guy is the pettiest man in the WWE, you know? He had no business being in that match or being anywhere near that ring. But this guy can't let it go. He just came over the top, came out from the crowd, and Claymore kicks a defenseless Cody Rhodes right out of the ring and eliminates him. And in that time serves as a good enough distraction to Jacob Fatu for Roman Reigns to capitalize and eliminate Jacob Fatu. And I gotta tell you, Roman Reigns is only just elevating his numbers statistically, right? Like, this guy had, I think, 41 or something eliminations by the all together now after this Royal Rumble. But yeah, that served as a distraction. Roman Reigns throws Jacob Fatu over the ring, leaving I think 5 or 7 people left, like standing in the Royal Rumble. And I think by the last 4, we had Randy Orton, Logan Paul, Gunther, and Roman Reigns as your last 4 in this Royal Rumble. And I gotta say, Logan Paul has been the last 4 people standing for the last 2 or 3 Royal Rumbles, and that's really good for a guy who's not even here full time, you know? Or now he's here full time. But for a guy who's been doing this for less than 10 years or less than 5 years, I think Logan Paul is like, he's got to have silenced all the doubters by now, you know? This guy is definitively a future main eventer in the WWE. But anyways, you had, like, for the closing of the show, you had Randy Orton hit Logan Paul with an RKO and throw Logan Paul out of the ring. And right as he throws Logan Paul, you had Gunther throw out Randy Orton. And so now the career, I think that's a setup as well, you know, the career killer versus the legend killer, because the career killer throws the legend killer over the ring, right? And in that time, that, like, Roman Reigns comes and Superman punches the shit out of Gunther and just, like it was nothing, you know, spears Gunther and chucks his ass over the ring to become your 2026 Royal Rumble winner. The Tribal Chief is back, and no doubt is probably going to go after CM Punk and get his revenge on him. And honestly, all in all, I think it was a solid match. I would give it a 7 out of 10, but I wouldn't say it was the better, it was even like the anywhere near the best match of the night, you know? Even though I would give the Sami Zayn match a 6 out of 10, I still think the low point of the night was still the men's rumble, if that makes sense. Because at least that match, even though it wasn't like a great technical match, it told a story that was exciting and it invoked more of an emotion out of me. So that was my review for the 2026 Royal Rumble in Riyadh. All in all, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. What do you guys think? Did you like the show? Do you agree with my takes? Do you disagree with them? Where do you feel like they dropped the ball, and where do you feel like they hit the jackpot? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. And yeah, put that little, you know, that bell a click as well. And be sure to get all the notifications of future uploads. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.